The moment you stop chasing her, the second you fall silent, no texts, no explanations, no emotional speeches, she notices. Not because you begged, not because you argued, but because you disappeared without a sound. And that silence, it screams louder than any desperate words ever could. That's power. Most men today are addicted to validation. They think attention equals worth, that talking equals connection, that begging means love. But masculine strength doesn't need applause. It doesn't chase chaos. It withdraws. When you learn to walk away without a scene, without emotion, she feels it, and she'll remember it longer than any argument. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your frame. This is Stoicism, weaponized. And in a world full of noise, your silence becomes your edge. Let's be honest. Most of you talk too much. You explain, you justify, you react. And every word you give her, when she's testing you, is a crack in your frame. She doesn't want a boy who babbles. She wants a man who leads, a man who can leave, without noise, without drama, because when you walk away with calm eyes and sealed lips, you don't just exit, you haunt her. That's the cold truth. The psychology of silence. Silence is not passive, it's not weakness, it's strategy. When you say nothing, you think you're doing nothing, but in her mind, you've started a storm. See, women are wired to notice shifts in energy, especially emotional disconnection. And when you go silent, her brain doesn't just register absence, it panics. She starts filling in the blanks. Is he angry? Did I go too far? Why isn't he fighting back? Is he done with me? She replays the last thing she said, the last move she made, the last look you gave, not because you argued, not because you made a speech, but because you didn't. Silence, when done from strength, not fear, triggers uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds interest. You see, most men explain. They apologize for things they didn't do. They send long texts, pouring their hearts out, hoping for validation in return. That's emotional weakness, dressed as love. But when you withhold words, you flip the frame. Now she's the one chasing clarity. She's the one wondering what you're thinking. And that's where attraction grows, in the space between certainty and doubt. This doesn't mean ghost her. It doesn't mean go cold out of bitterness. That's immaturity. True masculine silence is calm, controlled, measured. It's the look on your face when you're unbothered, the stillness in your body when she pushes for a reaction and gets none, when you speak only when it's necessary, when your words are deliberate, not emotional. You shift from being another noise in her world to being the silence she can't stop thinking about. That's not disinterest, that's dominance. Because a man who can hold silence without needing to fill the space is a man who doesn't fear it. And a man who doesn't fear silence, doesn't fear being alone, doesn't fear being misunderstood, is a man who is in control of himself, and control is magnetic. The moment you learn to speak through action, presence and stillness, without needing approval, you stop being the background noise in her life, and you become the mystery she can't shake. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's the proof of it. Why speaking less increases your power? Here's a truth most men never learn. The more you talk, the less she respects you. The less you talk, the more she studies you. Silence is uncomfortable for weak men, but for disciplined men, silence is a filter. It reveals everything. When you go quiet, people scramble. They start to reveal themselves. She fills the gap with her own projections. She'll tell you exactly who she is without you saying a word. And you just observe, you watch, you measure, you listen, not to reply, but to see what's behind the mask. Because when you're always explaining yourself, always arguing, always trying to be understood, you lose leverage. You become predictable, familiar, ordinary. But when you speak less, intentionally, you create mystery. And mystery is power. It's magnetic. Women are drawn to what they don't fully understand. That's not a gimmick. It's biology. She doesn't want full access. She wants earned access. She doesn't want a man who spills everything. She wants a man who's hard to read, impossible to control, and confident enough to let silence speak for him. Overexposure kills value, just like a song played too often loses its impact. Your constant words water you down. You become background noise, forgettable, replaceable. But when you speak only when it matters, your words carry weight. They cut through the noise. She leans in, she listens, because you've trained her to expect power, not performance from your voice. And here's the twist. Most guys never see coming. She doesn't actually need answers. She wants strength, and silence, when used by a man with discipline, screams strength louder than any monologue ever could. It tells her, you're not desperate, you're not rattled, you're not seeking permission. You are centered, you are grounded, you are whole, with or without her. Speak less, watch more. The man who controls his tongue controls his world, because when you stop trying to be heard, people start to listen. Masculine presence over words. A real man doesn't need to announce himself. He walks into a room, and the room adjusts, not because he's loud, not because he's flashy, but because his presence speaks louder than his mouth ever could. Most men try to impress with words. They talk fast, they joke nervously, they name-drop, flex and overshare, all desperate attempts to prove their worth. But the masculine man, he doesn't perform, he arrives. Presence isn't about looks or status, it's about energy, stillness, self-control. When you're rooted, calm, centered and completely unbothered, you radiate something few men ever achieve: inner dominance. You don't need to convince. You don't need to chase approval. You are the approval. That's why she can feel it. That's why others notice it. Picture this. Two men enter a room. One is cracking jokes, speaking loud, making sure everyone sees him. The other walks in silently, makes no effort to grab attention, but his posture is strong. His eyes are calm and he says nothing unless it matters. Guess who commands the room? Guess who women notice without a word? The man with presence, because presence doesn't beg. It doesn't seek validation. It says, I know who I am. I don't need you to confirm it. Masculine energy is calm, grounded, stoic. It doesn't flinch when tested. It doesn't react when provoked. And it doesn't crumble when ignored. That's why silence paired with presence is deadly. When she disrespects you, and you don't argue, you don't yell, you just leave. She doesn't remember what you said. She remembers how you moved, how calm you were, how nothing shook you. That's what burns in her mind. You don't have to fight to prove your worth. You don't need to yell to make a point. Be the one who observes, who speaks when necessary, and who owns every space he steps into. Not with noise, but with certainty. Words are wind. Presence is stone. Build yours in silence, and you won't need to explain a thing. They'll just feel it. Why most men break under pressure? Most men today crumble at the first sign of pressure. One cold text, one delay in reply, one rejection, and they spiral. Why? Because they were never trained to hold the line. Instead, they overtext, they double message, they send paragraph after paragraph, trying to explain themselves, trying to be understood, trying to win her back. They apologize for things they didn't even do. They say things like, I'm sorry for being too much, or I just wanted you to know how I feel. They dump their emotions, hoping vulnerability will unlock attraction. But here's the truth. That's not strength. That's weakness in disguise. Women don't test you to get answers. They test you to feel your edge. And when you fold under pressure, when you react emotionally, chase, beg, or break, you confirm what she feared. You're not him. Rejection is pain, but pain doesn't define the man. His response does. The weak man reacts. The stoic man decides. He doesn't send a novel to explain. He doesn't beg for closure. He doesn't try to win her through guilt, fear, or overexposure. He sees the disrespect. He sees the shift in energy, and he chooses to disengage, not to hurt her, but to preserve his dignity. Stoic men don't argue about their worth. They don't defend their masculinity like it's up for debate. They know who they are, and when someone can't recognize it, they walk away, not with anger, but with peace. Because pressure doesn't break the stoic man, it reveals him. So the next time you feel the urge to text her again, to explain yourself, to fix the unfixable. Stop, breathe, hold your frame, and remember every message you send in weakness is a vote against your own power. Let her wonder, let the silence speak, and let your absence teach the lesson your words never could. Pressure is coming, but if you stand still, eyes forward, emotions calm, you become unshakable. And that is a man worth remembering. Master the art of the walk away. Walking away isn't weakness, it's not ghosting, it's warfare with precision. The silent walk away is the most powerful move a man can make in a world where everyone's shouting to be seen. And here's the truth. You don't need closure. You don't need one last text. You don't need to talk it out. You need composure. And you need the discipline to walk away when your boundaries are crossed. Disrespect, manipulation, drama. The second you feel it, that tightening in your chest, that shift in her tone, that trap disguised as an honest conversation, you already know. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a test. And most men fail because they take the bait. They explain, they argue, they defend themselves, thinking they're being rational. But every word digs the hole deeper. Every reply chips away at your power. The Stoic man doesn't engage in emotional tug-of-war. He sees the chaos and removes his energy from it. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in silence. Because walking away isn't just about distance, it's about dominance over your own emotions. When you can walk away calmly, with no insults, no drama, no look back, you send a message louder than anything you could say. I don't need this. I don't need you. I choose peace. And let's be clear, this isn't about punishing her. This isn't a power trip. It's a standard. When someone disrespects you, you don't try to fix it. You don't convince them to treat you better. You leave. And that moment, it echoes. She'll remember the stillness in your face. She'll remember how you didn't flinch, didn't fight, didn't explain. You just stood, and then you walked. No noise, no chaos, just absence. That's not weakness, that's a spiritual flex. It means you value your peace more than her opinion, your time more than her drama, and your self-respect more than her approval. Walk away like a man who answers to no one but himself. And you'll stop chasing women, because now they're chasing the man who could vanish without a word. Build the Stoic frame, internal, external. You want to win in life, and with women. It starts before you speak, before you act, before you even walk into the room. It starts in your frame. Frame isn't how you look. It's not your job title. It's the internal structure that governs your world. Your values, your standards, and your boundaries are unshakable, non-negotiable, untouchable. Most men walk into interactions already defeated. They don't know what they believe. They don't know what they stand for. So they adapt. They bend. They shift to whatever will keep her happy. And in doing so, they lose everything. You cannot lead if you have no spine. You cannot be respected if your values change depending on her mood. The Stoic frame is built in silence, in solitude, in moments when no one is watching, and you're training your mind to remain still, sharp and anchored. So when she tests you, when she pushes against your line, flirts with your edge, tries to see what she can get away with, you don't react emotionally. You respond with standards. You don't yell, you don't beg, you enforce. If she crosses your boundary, you don't explain it. You don't try to get her to agree. You simply walk, and the silence is the consequence. And she feels it. Not because you're punishing her, but because you live by a code, and no one, not even the most beautiful woman, gets to break it without cost. Women respect the man who enforces his silence with action. She might not always like him, but she'll always remember him, because he didn't fold, he didn't fumble, he didn't fumble, he didn't give his power away just to be liked. So build your frame, know your values, define your standards, set your boundaries in stone, then walk into the world, not looking for approval, but filtering who's worthy of your presence. A man without a frame is a servant to chaos, but a man with one, he speaks rarely, but when he does, the world listens. Practical habits to strengthen silence and presence. Silence isn't just a mindset, it's a muscle. And like any muscle, you have to train it. Daily, deliberately, without compromise. You want to be the man who speaks only when necessary. You want presence that hits like gravity the moment you enter a room. Then you build it before you need it. Start with your breath. Every morning before you check your phone, sit in complete silence and breathe. Deep, controlled, focused. 5 seconds in, hold, 5 seconds out. Why? Because if you can't control your breath, you can't control your mind. And if you can't control your mind, she will. Next, cold showers. Not for fitness, for discipline. You step into discomfort first thing in the morning and refuse to flinch. That trains you to stay calm in chaos. You're literally rewiring your nervous system to hold tension without panic. Now add eye contact drills. Look people in the eyes when you speak. Better yet, look in silence. Don't blink, don't shift. Let the tension rise and say nothing. That discomfort you feel, that's the weakness leaving your body. Then grab a journal, not to write poetry, but to unload the mental garbage that's making you reactive. Every thought, every frustration, every fear, get it out. Clarity in the mind equals power in presence. And finally, practice holding tension in silence. Next time there's an awkward moment in conversation, don't fill the space. Let it breathe. Let others fidget. Let her wonder what you're thinking, because the man who can hold silence holds power. Most men can't go 5 seconds without noise. They fidget, they talk, they distract. You sit in stillness like a mountain. These habits are not glamorous, but they forge something rare: control. Control over your breath, control over your reactions, control over your energy. And when you've trained your nervous system to stay calm in tension, you'll no longer need to speak loudly to prove who you are. You'll walk into a room and say nothing, and yet somehow everyone will feel it. That's presence, and it's built, one silent rep at a time. Build your life, not her opinion. A high-value man doesn't argue. He doesn't beg. He doesn't waste breath trying to change how she sees him. Why? Because he knows this truth. Her opinion is not your mission. Your life is. Too many men burn out trying to be understood. They chase closure. They chase validation. They chase her instead of building themselves. You were not put on this earth to win approval. You were put here to create, to conquer, to build. And the moment you shift your energy from reacting to women to refining yourself, everything changes. You stop being emotional. You start becoming dangerous, because now you're focused, not on how she feels, but on your fitness, your money, your discipline, your inner peace. You hit the gym, not to impress, but to dominate your body. You build your income, not to look rich, but to build freedom. You master your time, not to be available, but to be untouchable. While she's wondering why you haven't texted back, you're stacking wins. You're moving in silence. You're sharpening your edge. That's the man she thinks about when the room is quiet. Not the one who begged, not the one who explained, but the one who walked away and leveled up without her. You don't need to convince anyone of your value. Just become so focused, so disciplined, so mission-locked that she realizes she wasn't the prize. You were. Let the soft men debate feelings. Let the lost ones chase attention. You build. Your purpose is the foundation. Your habits are the architecture. Your silence is the fortress. And when you finally speak, when you finally let someone into your world, it won't be to explain yourself. It'll be to invite them into something rare, something earned. So stop orbiting her opinion. Stop reacting to her emotions. Start building a life so powerful, so grounded, that people can either respect it or get out of the way. The man who builds wins. And the man who builds in silence, he becomes unforgettable. What she secretly thinks when you say nothing, you walked away. No text, no chase, no drama, just silence. And now she's thinking, not because you tried to convince her, not because you explained yourself, but because you didn't. And in that void, the questions begin. Did I mess up? Why is he so calm? Why isn't he chasing me like the others? She expected a reaction. She expected emotion. She expected to win. But instead, you gave her stillness, a mirror with no reflection. And now, she's the one spiraling. See, most women are used to power. They're used to men who chase, who plead, who fold the moment tension rises. But when you respond with pure, controlled silence, it hits different. It shifts the power quietly and completely. Now she's the one checking her phone. Now she's the one replaying your last words, if there were any. Now she's scrolling through your profile, trying to decode your indifference, because silence creates uncertainty. And in her mind, uncertainty becomes obsession. She starts wondering, has he moved on? Did he find someone better? Was I not enough? That's the silent war you just won. Without raising your voice, without sending a single message, without explaining a thing. Because when you say nothing, you give her room to feel everything. And don't get it twisted. This isn't manipulation. This isn't about playing games. This is about preserving your power. You didn't disappear out of fear. You walked away because your peace is more valuable than her chaos. You let her sit in the consequences of her own behavior. You let her feel the weight of your absence, and whether she admits it or not, she notices, she feels it, she thinks about it. And if you've built yourself right, if your silence comes from strength, not ego, she won't just wonder where you went. She'll wonder how she lost a man who never begged to be kept. That's what happens when you stop talking and let your silence echo in her mind. Silence isn't weakness. It's not retreat. It's ascension. Because the man who no longer needs to be understood is the man who finally earns respect. Let the others beg. Let the weak explain. You move with presence. You move in purpose. And when the time comes, you walk away without fear. Because your value doesn't shrink in silence. It multiplies. So let them wonder. Let her feel your absence. Not as punishment, but as proof that your peace is sacred. This is the Stoic way. Speak less. Move sharper. Stand alone if you have to. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, speak less, react less. Walk away when needed, calmly, and just watch what happens. You'll see who respects you. You'll feel your power rising, and you'll stop apologizing for being masculine. If you're done explaining yourself to people who never deserved your words, hit like, subscribe, and comment silence wins below. And don't miss what's next. In the next video, we'll break down 8 Stoic tactics that mentally break manipulative women without raising your voice, without a single word. Stay sharp, stay silent, stay sovereign.